Now, in previous video, I've been mentioning that though some people would speak about equality, uh, it is not necessarily that though we claim that it is good, it's not necessarily that we would actually want it. It's not necessarily that it is actually something desirable under the certain circumstances. Now, because equality would mean that, of course, each one received the same portion. And we know the history that, well, each person is different, uh, has different capacity, different efforts, and and no one wants same portion. Um, and when you start to look deeper into it, you also recognize that the fairness, uh, or fairness is also questionable because, well, fairness says that each man receives his due. Each one takes the portion he worked for. And it would mean that there would be lots of people left out who worked less, received less, but they are still angry and miserable and complaining. And what are we going to do with that people? Um, those people whom, well, possibly could be you, me, wouldn't actually want equality. They rather would want mercy. They rather would want understanding. They rather would want other people being considerate of perhaps their problems. Life is hard and full of unpredictable things, terrible things that happen to people. And so people in such situations who for some reason were not able, or maybe even not for due to some external reasons, but internal reasons that also could be influenced by multiple factors. Uh, it could be selfishness, it could be also laziness, but still, they are people, and if we would consider their value um, as in themselves and not as their value for what they can bring to us, then we would understand the concept of equality fails here. The concept fairness is not the best moral concept to be guided by. It is rather the concept of mercy that people would desire in such situations. But what people fail to understand is that there is a high possibility that you can be this person in each small thing that you didn't work for, in each small thing that you never deserved, in each small thing that, well, would be instead a blessing for you, due to the kindness, um, care and love of the other person. Mercy after all, and you would want it, but you didn't work for it. So it is pretty ugly, and bothersome attempt to um, measure everything with a ruler each portion for each one. But this is what fairness is about, and equality as well. Each man receives what is due to him. Now, this requires a lot of control and a lot of measurements. And even if, well, in modern society we would be able to assure it, it also would be a pretty much terrifying world. Because there's few things that are so great as what people call beauty, love, care, kindness. And we know that to be the case. But all those things, they lose their value when it becomes the matter of being worthy. When it becomes a matter of the trait, they actually do lose their value. They lose their sacredness. They lose their virtue, if you like. They lose the goodwill. Exactly that. It becomes the matter of selfish ambition. You provide the kindness, the care to the one uh who is worthy, but in a matter that he did something perhaps, well, for you or etc. for society, um or he has the sort of status that could bring something for you, right? The power or anything else. And people in this world become rather means to each other. Their their value as of human beings, as of human life, is just lost because each one gives to the other only what he has. Hmm. Worked for to receive, which in some way is also good. It's also good. um but when it becomes so reductional, it's also, well, worthy in which sense? Worthy in which sense? When you work, you also should understand you just don't work for nothing. You work for someone, right? You work for someone's benefit. And you work to make a value for other people who would, well, pay you for this value, right? Those are the principle of economics. And which means that basically it's not that he became worthy actually in himself, as if he would have any virtue, uh, but he just brought something to your table that you were needed, and so you give him his due. And those are basically transactional relationships. And transactional relationships are, in essence, in core, selfish relationships. If again they only continued for the sake of the receiving, if the core of these relationships is to receive, the core is the transaction itself, the core is the benefit for you, then yes, they become selfish in essence. And society that worships the self, that operates uh, or elevates the self, the society in which each person, each individual operates for his benefit, for the self, it's it is chaotic society, because there should be a uniting principle. And the self is quite dividing, right? Because obviously each one has his own self. So there is not a lot of union and cooperation in such societies. Yeah, and it's obvious. It's obvious. Selfish societies um, become corrupt, and because in selfish societies, again, there is a tendency for to elevate the self, or and when you truly elevate the self, you use others as the means to your ends, and this is also the society uh, with absolute power of the leader, tyrannical, which already is tyrannical, because the tyrannical and because tyrannical society would operate on the principles of power and control, uh, with regard of the benefits for its leaders, and disregard of other people, right? So this is this is why it's a tyranny, disregard for the concerns of others, for the well-being and the thriving. And we know that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we have many historical examples of it. French Revolution is a great example. The elevation of the self leads to nothing but destruction. Satanism is also, in essence, a worship of the self. Um, but eventually, we know that the systems that operate on tyrannical power, on lies and corruption, and control, and the forcive power, right? They fall under their own weight, because they become so burdensome for the people to sustain it that it just collapses. And it works for no good, even for for the people who elevated themselves to gather all the benefits to themselves. Even for that people, it turns out to be a disaster, because all the other people would come them. At any point, they would have a chance. Why wouldn't they? If you were disregarding their interests for a long time, if you were manipulating and lying because you were continuously elevating yourself and everything, right? So in transactional relationships, in its core, in its essence, um uh, transactional, they are selfish. They see people as means, and no society can strive like that. And so we need mercy, we need love, and we need care. We need and we need this over equality and fairness, because none can fair it would be ironically, but none can fairly um, define the fairness, can fairly put out the fair conditions. And even if it would be possible, um, well, there would be high questions to the distributors, um and there and even if even if the distributors would still, let's imagine, distribute fairly, because it's the whole system that uh, controls each individuals, it becomes a society of monitored more. Do you have this like morinate? Don't remember this word in English. uh, Monitored robots, let's say, right? um Again, it becomes cruel. um and we would not definitely want it. So, well, thank you for listening. I hope it's been a good discussion of this topic. So i I think the main maxim to remember is that when fairness is elevated above mercy, it results in a elevation of the self in transactional relationships that values people as means and resources and disregards their concerns. And thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.